Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe.
Welcome, all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends. It's the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, coming to you from an undisclosed location. Unfortunately, I cannot be with the group today. I'm going to turn it over to my good buddy, Eddie Guevara, for the introductions and the setup for what's going to turn out to be a great topic of discussion today. So, Eddie, take it away.
All right, guys, how are you doing out there? Everybody fine? How are you doing, Chuck? Jason?
Pretty good.
Great.
Your side, I know you had a new grandkid. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. That was our first grandchild, actually. His name is Roman. His middle name is my name, Charles, and he was born 2 days ago at 6:37 p.m. out here in Pittsburgh. And I was at a show that day, actually, and I came home. I was texting my wife, Cheri. I said, how's our daughter-in-law doing? Her name is Cassie, and she was nine centimeters dilated. So once I was done, I came home. I put the animals away. I got washed up. I changed clothes, and I went right to the hospital. And I gave birth literally within 45 minutes. So yeah,
Wow.
so thank God everything's well, and the baby's fine, and both of the grandmas particularly they're very excited. They're always trying to babysit already. So it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Well, congratulations on that, Chuck.
Congrats.
You'll probably have a few more in a couple of years, so then you'll be getting a couple congratulations. Jason, what's up with you? I know Jason has been more than helpful. Jason has been helping us with our site. He took a trip to China and came back to help us out. So tell us a little.
Yeah, Tapatalk's not the easiest website to work on. I'll say you almost have to wedge changes into its system because it's made to look the way it looks, and if you want to change it, then you have to kind of dig into the guts of the thing and hack it in.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I like the way the new format looks. It looks really cool, and I like the categories. They're really neat.
Yeah. I don't even think you can see the changes I made, Chuck, because the way that Tapatalk does it, if you do changes like I did them, they want to review them before they put them live. So only the administrators can see the changes until they say, okay, look, you didn't put in more ads, or you didn't try to hack us or anything, so we'll okay your change.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully
that's a good thing you know what you're doing, Jason. That's a
Yeah.
big plus. Wow.
Well, I never know what I'm doing, but I figure things out.
Jason, I have a question on this. Basically, why do you think the Tapatalk might be so successful around for a long time? It has like 200,000 or 300,000 forums, and like there's one particular, the one I'm talking about is the one called the horror classic board, horror movie classic board. What do you think that it does so well?
Well, if you don't want to change everything, if you're happy with what it is out of the box, then I think it's pretty easy to work with. But it's not made to be easily changed unless somebody wants to go in and hack it a bit.
Am I correct in saying that Tapatalk allows people that are actually using it as an app or anything to even make money on it? Meaning, if I'm just a visitor and I keep getting gold coins, I can eventually cash out. So I guess what makes it good is that all the visitors to the site have a chance of making money too, correct? I mean, not a lot.
Yeah, I know. I haven't looked at that a lot for other than what it said on the front page, but I'll believe it when I see it.
I think the way it is when you get gold coins each time you vote. You can also vote the Tapatalk higher and higher ranking each day, I think, if you look at the right side. And then you can get coins. Now, for all the coins you get, I do know when it says you get 5,000, I think, or 1,000 gold coins equivalent to $5 or something like that. Either used to buy more gold coins or say, for example, because here's the difference with Tapatalk. You have ads. It's a sustained app. So the ads on Tapatalk, what it does is it's sustained. Now, say if you pay your site won't get any ads. So you're allowed not, you won't get any ads and you get more gold coins. Also, hosting it, like in my condition, the $10 a month takes away, allows me to have like houseoftheunusual.com pointing. So you're
Okay.
kind of stuck. You're
It
kind of
covers
stuck with that. It covers, but it
your
sure
big.
covers the cost. Right, it covers the cost of what I was paying, which was about $1,000 a month for the Wix, which is a standby website. And in my opinion, when you have a standalone website that's there, will go. But I mean, what makes people go to the Apple website? Only if you're going to buy an Apple. The rest of the year, you don't visit it. So if you, and this is the idea behind this, you build a forum where people can come each day and discuss topics they're interested about. They're going to keep coming back. So if you build the House of the Unusual as a community, as a type of gallery or something where people can come, an internet mall kind of, where people will come and chat. And then there's the buy it section, the buy sell section. All those people become or the people that become VP members, they will be able to post ads and sell their own stuff there. They don't have to go through it. Actually sell their stuff, and it's like regular classifieds that they just can list in. I think that it gives it a better chance to go out there. What I would, because I noticed that Tapa Talk somehow is kind of like a self-advertising forum. Like, it kind of people in there without you even running ads, which is kind of weird. I was wondering if you saw any of that, how that works.
No, I haven't looked at that at all. I've been down in the guts of the site, not in the not up top.
Okay, that's that's much, Jason. I know it's
Oh,
going to
you're
cost
welcome.
you. It's going to cost you a lot of new karate records, maybe whatever comes my way.
Whatever you come across someday.
Hey, I wanted to bring up really quick. I'm going to bring up some points here that was very interesting. Jason, you came across a 1980 of the Johnson Smith Company, and I thought it was hilarious because when I was watching that, now this is the time I kind of started the House of the Unusual, but it was back then. It was called Winter Breeze Enterprises. I don't know why I got that name, but of course, as the '80s pursued, it became PE House of the Unusual, and then I actually purchased the fund. I started the original Fun Factory with Lou Wise, the original owner, and then it became House of the Unusual instead of House of Unusual. I also used the name Nastex, Nastex Industries at the time, which was what I used as my advertising agency. Now, the reason you do that is because back in the 80s, when you started a mail order business and you were going to put an ad in a magazine, they would give you 15% if you had an advertising agency. So people would open their own in-house advertising agency and do that. Now, what I wanted to bring into the attention, looking at that, the lady says the vice president of Johnson Smith, Craig Tarbeck,
I remember
and I thought it, and I thought it was kind of, Tarbeck is a copywriter, and it's very unlikely for him to make mistakes. And she actually pointed that out, and I to him, I'm gonna call him in a few hours because I want to like laugh with him about that.
Yeah, I love that
Because
video. I love that video, Jason. I don't know where you found that, but
I
that
don't
was
know, the algorithm on YouTube suggested it to me.
wow. That
yeah,
was too cool. That was, and it was very well done. It was hilarious. Wow.
well, yeah, it was done at a time, Chuck, that it's the 1980s. I mean, the
Yeah.
company was still in business. They were still
Yeah.
sending out. In fact, Johnson Smith, to people out there that are listening, is still in business today, but under a different regime. It's a company. The company today that owns several mail order companies, but they still have the name Johnson Smith. I don't know if they're still in the same location, Bradenton Beach, Florida, because they moved to Bradenton Beach in the 80s.
Right.
But one thing I'm going to tell you, though, Craig Tarbeck left them in 2010 when he retired. And Craig has been in our show about 3 or 4 times, 5 times, something like that, Chuck.
Oh yeah, he seems like a heck of a nice guy. Yeah, he'll get a kick out of that video. Oh man.
Oh, no, he thing with Craig is I was thinking maybe when I go to Florida again, I'm going to have to meet up with him a second. I did. The reason me and Craig kind of became good friends is I started contacting Craig in 1984. But Craig was always a very, very business oriented person. And he too open about anything. He was like, okay, you ask a question. He says, yeah, but he didn't give you no answers, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what made it is when I sent him a bottle of wine, like in 1989. I called him back. He had received it, but I never heard from him. About 7 or 8 years later, I met Lou Weiss. And me start doing the Fun Factory. The story goes that Lou Weiss at one time had tried to hire Craig Tarbeck, Johnson Smith, bring him from Michigan over to New Jersey to work for the Fun Factory. What happened was Craig turned him down. And when I mentioned Lou Weiss to Craig, it kind of bonded a little kind of a personal relation between me and him to talk about. And then to even make it better, I drove 359 miles to have lunch with him.
Yeah.
And I met him in Bradenton from Miami Beach. And it was phenomenal because, we became really super good friends since then. We really have a good relationship. I call him all the time. He calls me for my birthday. He never forgets. I call him, he's a good man. One thing I'm going to tell you about Craig is he's one of those friends that you want to have. And another thing, he also had a great relationship with the famous Morris costume, Philip Morris. He knew him personally. He stayed in his house several. My contacts with the Morris Morris costumes comes from him. Because of Craig, I also was and stuff with Loftus Magic. Because they all knew him. Like he would travel the entire country for Johnson Smith Company. And since he was the main guy from Johnson Smith, he was able to introduce me. I really got all my credit and all my stuff through him. So I do credit him for helping me start my mail order company.
Hey, the one thing that struck me about the video was people didn't realize, back in those days, that the Johnson Smith Company was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was it was a cold place, like in the wintertime and everything. And I can still remember the address because I mailed so many things. I mailed 3705 Automation Drive, Mount Clemens, Michigan, or something like that. I mean, after all these years, I think I still got the address right, and it's just by memory.
They
that
actually
sounds like
had
an industrial park, all right.
Yeah, but they actually, believe it or not, they had two different addresses in Michigan. They were Mount, I think, to automate. I forgot the second address they had.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say one thing though. Overall, is and that's why Craig close-minded on the thing. They didn't allow people into the warehouse. They were pretty tough in that.
Yeah, they didn't encourage that at all. No, you're right.
No, they didn't. And it was kind of surprising though for a 1985 video that they're asking people that are probably in their 40s.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but she didn't ask. She literally said, "Where's the Johnson Smith Company?" But she didn't say, "Hey, the comic book novelty company," because back then they books with ads in them. So I was kind of surprised about that.
I love the chattering teethling out in the snow. I mean, it was just it was hilarious. Oh man,
that was a great find. I've never seen that video. I mean, I'm sure Craig hasn't seen it. I love the way they say Craig can spell on it.
It's been a while since I've seen a news article that had that much kind of fun in it.
That was
serious news nowadays.
Very well.
And Jason, did you notice too how funny it was that you could see that it was typed out? The letter wasn't in computer; it was typed writer. Where you could see the different lines that the words, some letters are higher than the other.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
To a collector who were to see that film, that letter that she received, if she had it today, would probably sell for $100.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's, and I'm telling you because I have a couple of original letters from Craig Tarbeck that he sent. And I know that if I put them, any collector of Johnson Smith would be very. But Craig did say a great story about the Johnson Smith one time, and I also did a link of a guy who is 75 years old, and he 75 when he wrote the article. It's called "Small Little Things, So Small Wonders," and he goes on to explain how he used to buy from the Johnson Company in Racine, Wisconsin, and then over when it went over to Michigan. I think he used to live next to it, not far from it. And he shows, and I thought the funniest thing was he's showing a little pig about an inch or 2 inches long. I think it was like an inch long. And the way the pig actually became alive was you took out a plug out of the butt of the pig
I
and you
got
stuck
that.
inside. Yeah, you stuck inside a live fly.
A fly, yeah.
And then you plugged it back in so the fly would go zzz, and the pig would vibrate.
Yeah, you know what? The pig is made out of like a celluloid type of thing, and it comes in a little box. I actually have one of those. I'm sure you got a few of those too, Eddie. But you know what? I've never tried it. I would like to give it a shot. What you're supposed to do is stun the fly with a swatter and put him in there and put the plug. His tail is the plug, and I don't know.
But I like the way the plug goes in the butt of the pig.
Jumping bean.
Yeah. But you put it inside the butt of the pig, which is funny.
Yeah.
One thing I'm gonna tell you guys though, honestly, I know Chuck. I never had. I've never even seen a real one other than the one in the picture for the first time.
Oh, okay. I'll have to take a picture. Oh, wow. When I go to the storage unit, I got it in my little case. I'll have to get it out and snap a few pictures. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. Remember, this is the 1930s and 40s, Chuck. I'm a 70s guy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But that was a cool video. You know what? Being in the magic industry like I am, there was a video. It's somewhere out there. It's actually pretty amusing too. Maybe Jason can find it. He seems like a pretty good detective. From Mac Magic. That's MAK. It's in Columbus, Ohio, and I know that you know who they are, Eddie. Because back when you had your magic shop, you probably bought a lot of things from them. But I knew Jimmy King Sr. As a matter of fact, I had designed a couple magic tricks for him, and he came over to my house maybe about 12, 15 years ago. And so I gave him the rights to like one of the snake baskets that they produced. But anyway, there was a local TV show out there that did a nice blurb on them. And I'm not sure, I guess that was in the 70s, probably the mid to late 70s. And it was actually pretty interesting. They went right into the place where they make all the cool stuff. And it was a really nice video. I saw an excerpt of it maybe 10 years ago. It's out there somewhere. So if somebody does find it, post it on the forum. It's pretty cool. That's Mac Magic in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm going to throw in something quick. The thing that's so great about the video you found, Jason, is that it was done in 1985. Now, I got married in 83 and I started my mail order adventure in 1984. So this video, when it came out, the only company that was in it was actually the Johnson Smith Company. And, you still had a few more. You still had Jack Abor from the Fun House in Newark, New Jersey. And you had the Abracadabra Magic Shop in Middlesex. There were a couple, but Honor House had closed about 2 summers before that.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's when I was able to go down there, meet up with Wagman and stuff. And they said, well, 6 years ago, we threw out a dumpster of old, and I'm like, oh, gosh, can I go back in time? But, that's basically
so close.
The history.
Yeah.
Now, Jason, give us an update of what your search is going with all the karate stuff you're looking for. That's all. A lot of people looking forward for that.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too. I got a tip that on an old newspaper, an old advertising flyer from the 1970s, 1978 or something, it had a mention of Icondo in it, and it mentioned that this guy, a teacher, I think he was in Agawam, Massachusetts, had ordered the course and was teaching self-defense at a high school. So I did some research. I found his son, who is still living there. His son's a lawyer, and he was happy to talk with me about it. And he remembered his dad, and he trained in Kyokushin, and he did some Hapkido, and he had tons of memories of the training in the 70s and 80s. And he remembered that his dad had that certificate, the Icondo certificate, and he was very proud of it. But he did not have his stuff anymore. He couldn't remember anything more about it than that. And it had been 6 or 8 years since his dad died, so I guess it didn't hang around.
Oh, wow.
So close.
Yeah, it's always
welcome to the club of the monster robot.
But at least I know it's not totally fictional at this point, Jason.
No. But what you got to do is, that's great research. You reminded me, Jason, don't lose hope. I've done that so many times. I've tracked down, and then when I I even was able to talk to the guy I told you, the son of the guy who had plans, and then he calls me up on a Sunday because he mistaken me for his uncle. So he sent me the ad of the robot plans. I said, yeah, you can get them on this and that. He sent me like a self-made magazine. I got all excited. I sent him $20 instead of the $2 so he could send me the plans. And I go, wow, I can't believe it's so easy after so many years. And then he calls me up on a Sunday. This was a Sunday morning 15 years ago. I know you call. I don't know who you are. My father died 20 years ago. He used to be J. Mar. I sent you. He was so nervous. $20 for whatever reason. And he said to me, if I ever find, but you know what? The years have gone by. I never heard from him. So I don't think he ever found it. But that does happen. You do come across a lot. But I can tell you one thing also. There was an article found in 1989 inside Rutgers University in New Jersey, and they were selling the original Charles Atlas company. Now, the Charles Atlas company at the time, since it was being sold, Lou goes to me, try to see if we can get it. Spoke with Charles Roman, and this is funny because I still have that original flyer somewhere where they were selling, and Charles Roman goes to me to get $100,000. And he said the company only makes about $20,000 a year, but it's a trade name.
Oh,
You
my.
can have a trademark. But apparently, it was actually bought by an actual friend of mine, which is his name is, he goes by Doc, but his name is Jeffrey Hogue. I don't know how much he paid for it or what the story was, but I know Lou said to me, "There's no way $100,000."
Oh, my.
I,
No
I
way.
was like, what a bummer, man. I could have owned it. But honestly, Lou Weiss took me under his wings. He thought it was interesting how I contacted him out of a phone book. Because early 1985, early 85, I started the company as Winter Breeze Enterprises with a friend of mine that I grew up with. We were selling books, like how to make money and stuff like that. So I remember one of my first ads had a skeleton sitting in a chair, and it said, tired of waiting to get a break. And so, I fell in love with mail order, but I always dreamed of having a mail order novelty business. And when I figured what I could do, because back then, in order for you to make a catalog, remember 1985, some of the computers that were out there were like the Tandy 1000, and you had
Apple
to
II,
basically, I don't think even Apple in 85. And I could be wrong. Maybe they were. I forgot the exact time they were out, but you know what?
Well, 79 for Apple, I think.
Okay,
but they
I was
were
wrong with that.
terrible computers back then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were horrible. And you had to paste any ad you made. You had to cut up and the wording. You had to get this huge typesetting machines that cost thousands.
It's funny, looking at those ads, you see the line sometimes around the clip art.
Yeah, you do. You know how you use the fonts to make them big or small.
Yeah.
You would take them and just make photocopies and enlarge and reduce, and then you were able to put them on the thing. It takes forever. And I figure, together a small catalog, and I'm like, you know what, man? If you guys are familiar with a company called LB in comic books, it has a little B, and the guy used to sell out nickels. LB, anytime you find an original catalog of LB, you can see all the cut-ups, because when he photocopied them, all the taping, it's like the crappiest catalogs I ever seen. But he printed them, he used them, and at least whatever I guess in the 70s you were allowed to do anything to advertise, right?
Oh yeah.
So and a lot of books, when you order magic books or anything, the staple and a cardboard cover. Right. And the thing basically is that a lot of people don't realize that, and that's a story to tell another time. When I met with Cal, one of the guys, graphic artists from Channel 4, that he sees me with the book and he's like, oh, we can do this. And then when he made a better version of it, I'm like, the problem is people at the time do not want a better version of it. They want the original looking version. If it was stapled, they want it that way. People want the original classics, and that's how you have to keep them. But the point is that I started looking for, how do I start a mail order business? And do is I'm going to search out in the courts and find out who owned the company, and that's how I came across, Honor House. Honor House was easy. Wagman still owned the same building. He still had a company there, so that wasn't a hard thing to get. But Lou Weiss, I couldn't find him. I kept getting no address. So one day I took a yellow phone page and I figured, okay, everybody who runs a mail order business is Jewish. If for whatever novelty companies are all Jewish owned, and it was true. So I picked out where were Jewish people. First of all, he's going to be rich. I picked up Bergen County. I started looking. I found a Lou Weiss. I called the first one. No, the second I hit a jackpot.
Wow.
He couldn't believe that I found him 10 years after Sunday in his house. So his personal house phone. And he figured he'd meet up with me, and the rest was history. I convinced him to start the original Fun Factory again. He took me in as a partner. He had all the cash and ran our full page mail order ad, the first mail order ad in 10, 20 years that DC Comics had for novelty. In 1992, 93 was the year we ran it. And it was all loose money, 18 at the time. So I was super excited. My dreams came true. And I was down in Lou's warehouse. He gave me a little, and I was there filling out hundreds of orders. And everybody in his office, including the secretary, would look at me like, here comes the kid again, making us do extra work. You could tell because, we were getting hundreds of orders from kids that didn't know how to write. And she had information. And then she had to give me the order stapled and ready with a mailing label for me to ship it out.
So that's cool.
Like me in the company.
Hey, that's a lot of good memories. Hey, but getting back to the copying and pasting brochures, when I started Magic in about 1985, maybe 86, I made up my own brochures, and I did that for years. I did exactly what you guys are talking about. I would go through different magazines and cut out different fonts and so forth, and I'd put it together, and I'd spin them off. If it had lines, I'd go with whiteouts, and I would get the lines off. I'd center them all. I still have a few of those things, and they did serve its purpose. You know what I mean? I did that for quite a few years until I had them professionally done. You know what I mean? And so it worked out pretty well. And the other thing I wanted to mention, as far as comic books go, I think this upcoming Chuck's Corner coming out on Friday is Comic Book Magic. So make sure all the listeners check it out. There's some really cool stuff on there. There's a novelty thing that I put on there that's it's like not really real, but it's fantasy. It's called Gremlins in a box. And so I act like my grandfather bought this little box, and there's a gremlin in there. He finds a playing card. I uncap a Sharpie. I place it inside, and he signs it. You can see the Sharpie moving. Check it out. It's really, really cool effect. So it'll be on.
Cool.
That remember, that's going to be this coming Friday, 7 p.m. each Friday. Corner comes on, and hopefully I'm getting Jude Cambis. Now, Jude Cambis is a very nice gentleman. He's been on our podcast several times, and he drove up to Jersey because he's working off the area, and we met up. He drove about 3 hours to meet up with me 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's a phenomenal person. I actually told him, because he does travel the entire country, to do travel blog, and probably will have it on his, because he acquires novelties. He's into Aurora Monsters.
Wow.
So he's going to be doing, like, as he acquires different things, posting little miniature videos. And I think that's going to be, it would be great for you, Jason, to eventually, I know you're the computer programmer, you're the brains behind computers, to do something concerning your tracking of mail order items, because I think people really enjoy that stuff when you come across those novelties, because I get a lot of people asking me in emails about your stuff and have you gotten anything new? And I've directed them to you. I've said, I've got like 4 people. They're following your, one of them is Dr. Saab. He comes on regularly. And that's another massive collection of karate stuff, but it would be great.
I've seen some videos of him in his collection room, and it's like a toy chest in there. Holy
yeah, it would be awesome to honestly have you have your own segment.
I don't know
I
if I
think,
make that much progress, but
well, the thing is, whether you make progress or not is the fact that you bring it up to the table and people,
hmm,
you got to remember something. Like I said, even when you like something, when we're talking about doing pay stuff and stuff for catalogs, I remember when it was kind of like a mouse that you would scan it over a print and then you can make an ad from it. And I was so fascinated and bought a $4,000 computer just to be able
wow.
to scan images.
Yeah.
I also bought a used copy thermal paper from a library that had a rubber top that it took 4 people to carry it home for me. And this was and I also tried to get a mimeograph machine from the schools that would print, because I was trying to do
Yeah.
anything that would possibly make me be able to publish
Hmm.
something of my own
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
without, but the
Yeah,
whole point is
that's one thing I've been having fun with is scanning in some of these old martial arts books that are getting yellowed, and because they didn't print them on good paper or anything like that, and they're starting
Yeah.
to age out. So I wanted to have some record for the future of what these things were. And the software that's available nowadays for cleaning scans
Oh,
and
it's
and
amazing.
cleaning up the text or removing all the speckles and background colors and stuff
Yeah.
like that is it's great to work with. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Jason, when you scan, normally the old days you would cut the binding and then scan them. How are you
Yeah.
doing it? Are you
Well,
using the new scanners for that?
Well, currently I'm only doing the ones that are booklet size. So I'll pull the staples out because I've seen some of the old booklets have rusty staples. And I don't want them going rusty in my books in the bag that they're stored away in. So I pull out the staples and then I have a full 8.5 by 11 sheet that I can do the
Oh,
scan.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
yeah, that you could scan. I've been, but
Yep.
one way that I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar because you're a computer guy. You seen those book scanners they sell for like $400-$500 that allows you to
Uh,
scan the book and then
yeah,
it automatically.
I built one. I built a book scanner to use it, and I could never get my angles right for I could get minimized reflection of the lights in the picture, but I could never get it rid of it 100%.
Oh.
Okay, I bought was 387. I actually returned it because the need was at the time. I should have kept it. But you have to do a little bit of playing around after. But what it is,
Yep.
it looks like a tabletop lamp, kind of like a long, it's either 5, 7, 12 inches long, and it has a rod, and then it
Hmm.
has a base. And then you have two yellow or white things you attach the thumbs to. You turn the pages of the book and you hit the button with your foot and it scans one page and then you turn the other page. You're doing it.
Yeah.
But I bought it because I wanted to scan. See, I have a set of books that Chuck has. They go for about 2,000, Dan. And I wanted to sell the books, but I also wanted to keep a scan profile of it. And the book is like 14 inches. Put it into any scanner, and it's like 800 pages thick each book, so you can flatten it out. So what this
Hmm.
is, when you take the picture, it actually flattens out the pages for you.
Yeah, it does it in
Um,
software. Yeah.
so it's really a machine that's like $2,000. That's really phenomenal, and that's how the big companies actually do. Like
No, no.
I'm
If,
used to,
if you look at
but
Google built a machine to do that for their books project,
Hmm.
and it is quite a rig. It slides the book in at a V angle on a glass, like a glass almost triangle or pyramid, and then the book slides across it, and it takes the shot from the bottom up. So it on two
Wow.
cameras, one pointed at each page
Wow.
alternately, and then it just slides back and forth. And as it slides, it moves the page forward one, page forward one, page forward one, and it can fire.
Wow.
I don't know how many pictures a minute it can take, like 60. And
well,
Unbelievable.
yeah,
that's kind of how those machines work. There is one that's $2,000 that's very similar to the one you're talking.
yeah.
Pain has like 4K. Because I was searching, I'm like, how do people scan books? I'm like,
Hmm.
and I was shocked. Let me tell you, 4 years ago, this I think it's like
No.
from last year to now. And I got to tell you though, Jason, it did a very good job in scanning the one book. I
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering
And
how
it's
well it would do because I've tried some of the apps for the phone for book scanning, and they're
no,
okay,
that's
but
no good.
they're not as good as a flatbed clear scan boom.
Of course, but that's what I'm saying. The ones that they sell that are for books, you can go to Amazon. In
Yep.
fact, you can buy one and then send it back if you don't like it. But get one of the higher
That's
end,
true. Yeah,
and
you gotta
you'd be
spend some
surprised
cash.
what it could do. Because I got to tell you, well, I'm saying higher end means like the $600-700 ones
Yeah.
instead of the
Yep.
three. But now, since I did that last year, we're talking another year. They might have new models, and the whole point is what I'm
Or it
saying
might
to
have
you
gone
is
up with the supply chain issues.
books on print outsold by 75% ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are still, I mean, you go to Barnes and Noble in any given time. I have 4 or 5 Barnes and Nobles by me.
Yeah.
There's one floors and it's packed with people each time you go. They
Yeah.
have a
Yep.
Starbucks, which actually that's Starbucks that's owned by
Mm-hmm.
Barnes and Noble. And I don't know if most of their business is from that, but they have like 100 people sitting around, you know?
Yeah.
And so books are, I mean, they're selling a lot. If you look on KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, and you see all the stuff, there's people that are
Mm-hmm.
showing things that they're selling $60,000 worth a month,
Oh yeah.
making $1 million a year. People are buying the print. It's hard to read an ebook, you know. I mean, you
Yeah.
read an ebook and it hurts you.
Yeah, it
And
does. It does. You know what? And I like the smell of a book. I like the feel of a book. I don't know. I know I'm considered
Yeah.
like a dinosaur,
I
but
like bending the
well,
corners. I like
well, you got to
correcting
remember,
typos.
there's a lot of people living longer than ever before, and the majority of are still in tune to what we grew up with.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The now generation don't watch TV because why they don't watch TV? Because one, we came from an era where we had 20, 30 TV channels and everybody would have to watch what's on. So the entire nation was in tune as to
Yeah.
who was famous, who was not. Now you have over 1,000 different channels, different streaming video formats,
Oh.
YouTube, TikTok. So you go now, it's not rare to find a person that you can up to in their 20s and say, who's the president of the United States? And they might say Abraham Lincoln. I mean, honestly, there's a guy in who actually goes on Times Square on a weekly basis, and he'll ask young kids questions like how many states we have, country, and they're like, say Ethiopia, you know, like they're totally
Yeah. It's sad.
idiots. If you
Yeah.
want, I call them idiots, you know.
It's actually
But
sad. Oh.
I told the other day, Elvis. He goes, "Who's Elvis Presley?" I go, "You've never heard of Elvis Presley?"
Oh
I
wow.
honestly, I heard the name. It's like people are not in tune with the world around them anymore.
No, no, they're not.
So what's happened is that those people that are in tune are not generating the millions and millions, actually billions of dollars in sale nationwide. Is the people that I think are doing that, and the generations that still see TV and watch TV, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which is 60%. Because let's be honest, you go to any rural community and some place doesn't even have internet yet. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying?
Yep. I
Yeah.
go across the border to a little town called Ogdensburg, up in northern New York, and they have a machine out in front of the supermarket where you can get a DVD by putting in your credit card or whatever, or cash, I think even, and
Wow.
it'll spit one out for you. Boop, there you go.
No,
That's
well, that's what I live in. Let me tell you something right now, my friend. I live in the most dense area of New York and New Jersey, and every single shop, right, which is like, you know, the supermarkets around my area, they all have that DVD thing outside that you buy in the kiosk.
The red box, I think it's called.
yeah.
Yeah, the red box, they all have them, and my mom is there every day.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
yeah,
do you have to
that's
return
very
them? Is that
yeah. You
Yeah.
have to return the next day,
Yeah. It's
but
got a
wow?
slot. It's got a slot. It takes it in. Yeah. I've done red books
Oh,
many, many
so
times.
it's like Blockbuster except in
Yeah.
a
Red,
vending
Exactly.
machine.
Yeah.
yeah, no, but Redbox is very active. I saw the machine yesterday. It had new movies. There's a brand new Redbox is very active, and anywhere
Oh.
you go here, Best Buys or whatever, they still have a section on DVDs
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Walmart, you know,
Oh yeah.
I don't think they're gonna go. First of all, things have So the majority of people over 50 do not even know how to use a computer, let alone use a cell phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people just follow. Well, how do you do this? I mean, all my friends, I'm like the only one that knows how to use a cell phone. I have a friend who super smart, everything. He's like, Eddie, can you do this? So it's very like if you didn't do computers before your 20s and you're 50, you know how to do them at all.
That's true.
And
Yep.
and I know, like, for example, my friend Chuck and my friend Joe. Joe's 42. They're not computer.
Yeah.
Right, Chuck?
Not particularly. No, my wife is actually better at computers, the workings of them than I am.
Chuck, I was watching some of your YouTube videos with your constructions, and I'm thinking you got to get into some microcontrollers because I think it would blow your mind.
Yeah, you know what? I'm radio control basically. I know I didn't get into the Arduino or anything like that.
They're so easy to use. It took kind of the fun. It used to be you have to fight to build electronics,
Yeah,
but the Arduinos are so easy. It's like, oh, was that it?
I know. Yeah, you just download the information
Yeah,
onto it.
and everything's jigsaw puzzle put together, and it's great. But I
Yeah,
think for timings and firing off other things, and
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would like to get into it someday. Yeah, because I'm so used to radio control with the transmitters, and I built a flea circus already, Jason, years ago. I sold it. It was 15 channels on a.
wow.
Yeah, so each button performed 1 feat. I mean, it was something else. And
Wow.
yeah, the inside of that thing underneath looked like spaghetti. There was
Yeah,
so many wires.
like a wire wrap computer into there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Chuck, when you're saying that, and it's funny because when I got into things, I used to like spy gadgets in the 80s, and I would buy all this how-to kits and electronics, but I never put them together. I didn't know how to do electronics,
Yeah.
And just like when I first wanted to do my own radio station, I have about 4 or 5. I would say start your own radio station, FM transmitters that are still in kit form to put together. In fact, Chuck, you come from the era of Heathkit. Remember that catalog?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've got an old Heathkit oscilloscope right here.
Yeah.
Found it at the dump.
Oh, did you build that? Because everything used to come where you had to solder it.
Yeah, if somebody put it together, I kind of gutted it because the electronics inside were like destroyed, but the box, I've still held on to that really nice box.
Nice.
I'm gonna put a computer in it at some point. But
like a robot that they used to sell. It was called Hero 1 in the 80s.
Oh, Hero, yeah, I remember Hero 1.
It was like 4,000. I got it for $5 on eBay one day. Yeah. I have it somewhere. I mean, it's a crappy robot, man. It looks like a square box on wheels. It's I guess at the time, it's crazy to say this, but in the 1980s, you really could. 80s. When you bought a plane that would fly, like there was a P1 or P4 Mustang that you would buy. I forgot who used to sell it, and it was gas powered. Okay, you would put the gas, but the only way it would fly, you had to take a string that came with it, and you would spin it up in the air. You know what?
Right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think there was the Cox. I think Cox.
Yeah, that's
like their flying
Cox.
saucer they made that went up and then it came down.
I remember that. Yep.
Cox, nothing stayed airborne. I remember getting those rubber band power airplanes with the propeller you would put together, and you wound up, and that thing would go up about 2 feet and go back down to the ground. Never flew.
Yep. Yeah.
There was nothing that you could keep up there. Only a kite if you were lucky.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at the quadcopters that are available for $20 at Walmart nowadays. Like,
that's amazing.
One of those would have blown our minds back.
Oh my goodness.
They would, and you know what? The funny thing, everything gets airborne. Even a stupid little ball you can fly inside your living room.
Yep.
Which is, I don't understand. Work helicopters. I mean, radio control. When you spend $1,000, you were able to get airborne. But people don't realize prior to the 1990s, you could not get anything airborne. Cox, like you said, all the Cox planes had a string that you had to, which even if it had an engine or not, it was still going to fly.
Yeah.
You know, if you just gave him momentum.
And the
But
cost was crazy. I remember I was looking into that when I was in high school to build a model airplane. It was like, well, do you have $1,000? Do you have $1,000 to buy
Yeah,
the
right.
controller and the servos and the kit and the
you know,
motor and the gas to put in the motor? And
you know who did that? Dr. Fob. Dr. Fob did that because he's an electrical engineer, and he used to he would get electronic stuff and do what they say when you reverse engineer it.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of his favorite things to do that was I think we have I don't know if you ever seen it, but we did a round robin one time, like a podcast, and it's live on YouTube. If you go to the YouTube channel and you go where it's live instead of videos, you'll see a list there. There's one that us four, Todd mentioned. I think it was Todd. Chuck, you were on it, I believe, right?
No, I couldn't make it that time. I wish I would.
Oh, you did it? Okay, and we
No.
go around, and he actually takes things apart and shows how they work. You know, I thought it was a pretty good video, but
I'll have
very
to find that.
Yeah.
I like I said, I actually, and in fact, we're talking, Jason, so you should consider being part of it. I'm waiting for college. Everything's going to be over this week or stuff because Dr. Fob is going to, or Dr. Saab, not Fob. Dr. Saab is going to actually talk to Todd Nixon and stuff, and we're all going to do that again. And
Yeah,
Todd,
let me know. I'd like to participate. That'd be cool, man.
Yeah. He's actually now full-time Sea Monkey guy. He retired.
Oh, wow.
He retired at 35 years old. So, good for him that he was able to retire young. But don't tell him I told you, because he'll say I add 30 to that. But he's now full-time. He's gotten what he always dreamed of. His kid's dream became a reality. And the best part is, for people that don't know out there, Todd is the guy who actually designs all the Sea Monkey stuff that you see in the stores.
Wow,
he's in charge of designing, not in charge, but the company that put, of course, TransScience still owns the copyrights and everything to it, but she licensed out the products to, I don't know if it's toy makers or something like that. And it's still like a $6 million a year business.
Wow.
You find Sea Monkeys in every Walmart, Target. So yeah, it's going still. And Todd gets to design the packages, the toys, and Todd has, I mean, it's his private life, I'm not going to say, but he does have some good inside connections to big giant companies. And I'm talking about in the design department. So Todd is a good guy to know.
Yeah, I'd been doing martial arts for a few years before I got my copy of Mail Order Mysteries. And Mail Order Mysteries had a couple of the martial arts books in there.
Nice.
And then I lucked into being able to get copies of them on eBay. They just happened to, somebody was selling a couple of copies, so I got a couple of the books. And then I don't know, a few years later, I think I ran across that site that has a listing of all of the martial arts ads from comics. Not all of them, but a good selection of them. And it got me curious as to what was the actual material like for these ads that promised the world and all the secrets of the Orient for $1.99. So I started tracking them down, and then it became more of a detective story, which was more interesting rather than just being able to buy them. It became so the books and the ads have become separated, and you have to kind of figure out which book goes with which ad, and even if the books are available or not. And so it becomes a bit of a detective story and a scavenger hunt at the same time. And yeah, so that's where I got started.
Great.
Jason, when you bought those original books, Mysteries came out. I think one of the biggest thing that pushed Mail Order Mysteries into a reality was the fact that lost against me for the 7-foot ghost, which devastated him.
You made him cry.
Yeah, but I want to ask you a question. It was kind of because I thought it was so funny when he finally travels here and he looks at the ghost and his eyes are just like really round. He's like, wow,
and he says, look over there for a second, Eddie, as he takes out his X-Acto knife.
No. He actually took it like he had found a pot of gold, and you could see how much he really cared for the item. I wanted to ask you though, did you ever, I mean, just because I had so many Jasons I've sold to, there is one Jason. I've been dying eventually. I think I spoke with him one time, but we've been following each other for a while. And Jason started a blog years ago called, he's a graphic artist and he's really good at what he does. In fact, he's in the trade, I would say. And he created a blog called Scar Stuff. S Stuff.
Scar stuff.
And it's on Blogger. If you go to Blogger, you'll find it. And he was the first guy online that started to download the horror records from the 1970s.
Wow.
Okay. And then he would do yearly things and all this stuff. And I got to tell you one thing about him, though. He was really, really good. But anyway, what I wanted to say, did you ever at any time buy one of those books from me that you have?
I don't
that you can
think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
because I was
no, I would remember because
'Cause
I only learned about them from reading about your collection, so I would have remembered if I had bought them from you.
Okay, because I was gonna say I did go on eBay under different names. I'm Lions, the Land of Secrets, House of Illusions.
They're probably in my Gmail background here.
If you do, I really would love to see if that's a problem, because I remember selling a couple, but I want, and I don't know the name Jason. I want to tell you guys, when I said about the.
You're not Ham Rammer, are you? That wasn't one of your names?
No. But what I was going to say also, bringing up to our website in the forum on novelties, right under Jason's famous Johnson Smith video, which is one of the best videos I've ever seen. I put a link to the actual playing record of the Johnson Smith horror record from the 1970s.
Nice.
You can hear the full thing there, and I also did a link for that other column of Small Wonders, I think it's called, Smith Company. So Jason, yeah, if you do come across it, I would be interested in knowing that, because I remember one particular bought from me the book that's inside Mail Order Mysteries, but I had two copies of it. The one that's inside Mail Order Mysteries is the better copy. I had another copy that the front cover had a slight chip on the right-hand side. Sold it to him. And
let me check my copy here.
See if it has a chip missing.
They've got it right here. Here's Ketsugo. It has no chip missing.
No chip? It's not you then.
The only other one would be the world's deadliest fighting secret. Other than that, I think I know.
No. You know what's funny? I paid for the first world deadliest fighting secrets inside Mail Order Mysteries. Actually cost me $149.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was able to obtain for like 40 and one for $65. So I have 3 copies of the thing, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of them you get dirt cheap, and some they come at a quite a premium.
Well, the Ghost in Mail Order Mysteries, the Johnson Smith Ghost. The other one I bought 73. That's my original. The Johnson Smith Ghost that I fought with Kirk. We went on a fight and it cost me $978, I believe.
Wow.
900, and it was like $10 shipping something.
I remember reading that story because he wrote a blog post about that somewhere, or he was interviewed and he told that story, and he was teaching a class while the auction was going on, and finally he said to everybody, just take a break because it's coming up to the last 5 minutes of the auction, and then he got outbid and it made him cry a little bit.
The Cheri Caputo Case Files.
Hello, my name is Cheri Caputo. I'm one of the members of the podcast from House of the Unusual. I wanted to talk about a subject that interests me, and I hope it is one that you will enjoy as well. It's about the modern use of DNA to solve cold cases that were not solved in the past. A little bit about myself. I'm a retired registered nurse. And to be honest with you, if back in the day, if the forensics was advanced as it is today, I would have probably been tempted to go in that direction for my career. But anyway, if anyone doesn't know, DNA is the building block for the human body. It's virtually in every cell. It contains DNA. It is used as a powerful investigative tool. Only a few cells are needed. That's all, just a few cells for a useful sample. And that can be from your saliva, from like a bite mark. It can be blood or skin cells from like underneath a fingernail scrapings. Also, it can be from hair, semen, blood, or sweat. That can all be used to identify the perpetrator. Now, I came across one of the very old cases, one from 1971, which was solved 50 years later with this advanced DNA. Thanks to that, they were able, and also well-preserved evidence. That's a key too. It was back in Burlington, Vermont, July 19th, 1971. Her name was Rita Curran, and she was found murdered in her apartment. Now, Rita was 24 years old, a second grade school teacher who recently just moved out of her parents and went into a shared apartment with 3 other roommates that she really didn't know very well. There was Beverly and Cheri, and Cheri's boyfriend, Paul. Now, the apartment it was like a large house, and they converted this large house into 3 apartments. Rita and her roommates, they lived on the first floor. The second floor, I believe, was like 4 females that lived there. And the third floor was a married couple that lived on the third floor. So her 2 roommates, Paul and Cheri, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. They went out to eat. They were at a restaurant bar, and they were there for a while, and they decided around 11:15 p.m. that they'd call the apartment to invite Beverly and Rita to come join them, have some fun. But only Beverly was awake, and she decided to go. Earlier, Rita had come home from practice. She was in a barbershop quartet, so she was there, and she came home, got ready for bed, and put her hair up in rollers because she always did that every night, and eventually fell asleep. So around 12:30 a.m., Paul and Cheri decided to come back to the apartment. Well, Beverly followed about some time later, and the 3 of them just sat up in the living room and talked for a while. Beverly did share in a bedroom with Rita, and when she went in, Beverly came running out quickly and said, "Oh my gosh, I think there's something wrong with Rita." And sure enough, she was deceased. But they called the police immediately. Now, the police report stated that they found Rita lying on her back, naked, and it looked like she had been sexually assaulted and definitely strangled. And it looked as if she had struggled with the assailant, as her curlers were pulled out of her head, her hair thrown around the room. The curtains were torn off the rods, and her bed was pulled away from the wall. The petite girl of only 100 pounds, she fought for her life. That was so sad. Well, police called for backup, and they had the detectives come in and the medical examiner, and they also they called the FBI in because they wanted to have them help them bag up the evidence carefully. They bagged up her clothes, her bed sheets, and even her hair curlers as well. Now, they found one lone cigarette butt from a Lark brand. I don't know. That's an old brand. I don't know if you remember that. And it was found under her right elbow. So they did take it as evidence. Now, Paul and Cheri, they both smoked, but that wasn't their brand at all. So the police looked around. They went outside to see if there was any way that the perpetrator got into the house. And they had like a sandy driveway, and there was no footprints, and there's no evidence of breaking in. But then Paul had reported that they never locked, believe this, their front and back doors. So I don't understand that. I guess back in the 70s, people were more trusting, and it was a college town, but I'm not sure how questionable that was. But anyway, so the police, they went around, they questioned the neighbors and also the other tenants. The next day, the girls were back. They answered on the second floor, and they didn't really have any information to give. But the married couple, Michelle and William DeRuse, told the police that evening they were together the whole time. That was the married couple on the third floor. They didn't hear anything or see anything. And so, like I said, when they went to the second floor, no one answered, but they did catch up with the roommates on the second floor the next day, and they really didn't have any other information to give for that night. Now, during the autopsy, it was noted Rita was killed between 11:20 p.m. on the 19th of July and 12:30 a.m. That was only a 70-minute window, so that wasn't very long. Eventually, the case did go cold. So over 50 years of Rita's death would come and go. Rita's father, he passed away in 1991, and then her mother, she passed away in 2002. And unfortunately, those poor parents never found out who killed their poor daughter. So Rita's siblings and her other family members, they never gave up hope. But in 2019, the Burlington Police Department Detective Commander Lieutenant Trebe, he decided to reactivate the cold case of Rita Coran. Lieutenant Trebe and his team, they poured over all the case files, and the primary focus now would be the forensic evidence and the new DNA testing and research, which came about since then. The male DNA profile that was pulled off that Lark cigarette butt, that was enough to compare to the number of suspects on the list through either direct comparison, CODIS, which is the national base for CODIS, and the familial comparison. Even compared the DNA to like the first responders, the officers and detectives who were on the scene, as well as Rita's roommate, Paul. All were excluded. Now, since there wasn't a hit on CODIS, CODIS is the national index where the DNA is submitted. And the majority of the time, I believe that they have to have a criminal background to be found or to be a match. And they decided to go to the familial comparison. And what that means is a lot of people now are doing their DNA through like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. And that's how they use it to find family members that have like the match of that particular DNA. Not that complete match, but they know that DNA is related somehow. Actually been very successful in identifying suspects in several high-profile cases across the country. Trebe and his team, they researched several labs, and they decided to contract with Parabon Nano Labs in Virginia to sequence the DNA from the cigarette butt. So in 2022, the DNA was sent and was submitted to the Family Tree DNA. C.C. Moore, who is an investigative, genetic, genealogic, and media consultant, plus she's a chief genetic genealogist for the Parabon Nano Labs, and that she boasts the unparalleled record of over 100 successful identifications of violent criminals in the 2 years since the unit's launch, which is very impressive. Now, CC began her analysis with the previously known names in the suspect pool And then several new names were added as well. Now, among the new names added was William D. Ruse. He's the gentleman that was on the third floor, which, after careful analysis, C.C. Moore's report was that it was indeed D. Ruse DNA on that Lark cigarette butt. At the time of the initial investigation, when they questioned his wife, Michelle, she had reported that her husband at that time had a criminal record, and she had lied to the police stating that they were both home all night. But in fact, after 11 p.m., they had a little argument, and he took off. And he came back later, and she was fast asleep. So according to Detective Trebe, William D. Ruse, he actually died in California from a morphine overdose in 1986. He was cremated, meaning no available biological evidence was available, because when you're cremated, I guess there isn't any DNA to be had. But fortunately, William did have a half-brother who volunteered his DNA, and they found that the DNA at the crime scene was a match to William through this half-brother. So it was found out later, soon after the murder of Rita Curran, that William actually moved to Thailand. He left his wife. He became a Buddhist monk, and somehow they demonked him because he took off his clothes or something he shouldn't have done. And he ended up moving back here to the States. He actually was married like 3 times. And when he interviewed his third wife, she did report that he did become violent with her, actually choking her a few times. So she was definitely not wanting to be around him. So the case had been solved, and Rita's remaining siblings and family were contacted, and they were given the great news. At least they had some kind of closure after all these years. Now, this concludes my part of the podcast, and hopefully this may spark your interest in the new DNA and genetic testing, which is solving more and more cold case files today. Okay, thank you for listening. And if you want, please give me feedback. Thank you.